Hi everybody. Today we're going to be talking about human muscles, and these are muscles from Lab Practical List number 2. You can see that I have a number of different models here, and you are responsible for identifying the muscles on the Lab Practical 2 list on all of the different models where they are visible. The first one on the list is the frontalis muscle, and that is this muscle right here that would be basically where your forehead is. Contraction of that muscle would lift the eyebrows. So this is the frontalis muscle over the frontal bone. On the side, you can see that you have a muscle called the temporalis muscle, and it's over the temporal bone, so it makes sense it's called the temporalis. We have two circular muscles on the face. One is around the eye, and it's called the orbicularis oculi. You see you have one around each eye. And then we have another circular muscle around the mouth called the orbicularis oris. We also have a muscle on the side of the neck called the sternocleidomastoid, and it's called that because it is attached to the sternum, the clavicle, and the mastoid process of the skull. So that's the sternocleidomastoid. On this particular model, you can see two other muscles that are on the trunk. This muscle here is the pectoralis major, and it is superficial to pectoralis minor, which would be right here. This pectoralis minor is underneath pectoralis major. So one side you can see the more superficial muscles, one side you can see the more deep muscles. Turning the head model around, you can see the top of the trapezius muscle. So that can be seen here. This is a superficial muscle. The deeper muscles are seen on this side. The mini muscle man is an easy way to see all of the muscles you are required to know on one model. This is the pectoralis major, which I showed you on the head model. You can see that it's superficial to the pectoralis minor, which is on this side of the body. Muscles of the arm that you can see on this model would be the deltoid muscle. That is this nice bulging shoulder muscle. On the anterior side of the arm is the biceps brachii, this muscle here. On the posterior side of the arm is the triceps brachii. Here's the biceps brachii and the triceps brachii. You can see them without the deltoid on top. Towards the bottom of the arm, you can see a muscle called the brachioradialis. This runs from the middle of the upper arm down into the wrist area. So it's this muscle right here. We'll see it again on the arm model. Just opposite across the elbow pit from brachioradialis is the pronator teres muscle, and this is the muscle that helps you turn your hand back towards pronation. Looking at these in more detail, I have an arm model here. Put it in the right place. So the hand, if it's in correct anatomical position, the hand would be facing forward with the palm anterior and the thumb lateral. So I'm going to hold this arm in this position. When you're looking at that in this position, you can see the deltoid muscle is here. The bicep brachii is on the front, the anterior side of the arm, and the tricep brachii is on the back side of the arm. The supraspinatus is this muscle here. You can see it's above the spine of the scapula. If I was to take off the deltoid muscle, you can see here's the scapula. It's got muscles on the front and the back. Here's the spine, and the supraspinatus is above, supra means above, the spine. Looking at the lower arm, here would be your elbow pit. So not the bony part, but the anterior part. This part of your elbow. This muscle on one side, on the lateral side of the elbow pit, is the brachioradialis, and on the other side is the pronator teres. You also need to know which side are the flexors and which side are the extensors. So when you have your arm in correct anatomical position and you flex the wrist, Go ahead and do this with me. When you're flexing the wrist, you can feel the contraction in the muscles on the anterior side. So these are the flexors. If you were to extend or even hyperextend the wrist, you would feel it in the muscles on the posterior side of the arm. And remember, I'm talking anterior and posterior because we're putting our bodies in correct anatomical position where the arm, the forearm and the palm are facing anteriorly. So the flexors are on the front and the extensors are on the back. When you're looking at an arm model, the flexors would be on the palm side and the extensors are on the opposite side. Looking at the abdominal muscles on the front, the long, straight muscle running up and down the body is rectus abdominis. You can see that there are bands of connective tissue that go across this muscle, which can give it a bulging appearance or the appearance of a six-pack. The external oblique is the most superficial of the abdominal muscles, and you can see that it would be the fibers are running on an angle from the outside towards the inside. On this side, the external oblique has been removed, but those fibers would be running this direction. Underneath the external oblique is the internal oblique, and you can see that over here. You can see that the fibers run in the opposite direction. Deep to both the external oblique, internal oblique, and rectus abdominis would be the transverse oblique. We can't see it on this model, but the fibers would run across in a transverse fashion. Looking at the back of the trunk, we can see two large muscles. The trapezius muscle is right here, and you can see it. It is a superficial muscle, and so you don't see it on this side. The latissimus dorsi is here. The latissimus dorsi is another large back muscle. And then we have our supraspinatus muscle here, which is above the spine of the scapula. Looking at the leg muscles, we have a couple of leg muscles that we need to know. The first one is the quadriceps group. This group is made up of 4 muscles. Only 3 of them are required on your lab practical list. The rectus femoris is a muscle that goes straight up and down on top of where the femur is. The vastus lateralis is a large muscle to the lateral side, and the vastus medialis is a large muscle to the medial side. There's a deeper muscle as well, which is why this muscle group is called the quadriceps, because there are 4 muscles. Looking at the lower leg, we have a muscle called the tibialis anterior. This muscle runs along the tibia. You can see one over here as well. Here it is again. It runs along the tibia on the anterior side of the leg. Posteriorly, I'm going to hold this up, we have 2 muscles on the back of the leg. This muscle here is called gastrocnemius. It's kind of a bulgy calf muscle. There's another muscle deep to it, which you can't see on this model, which is called soleus. Here's the large leg model. We can see the same muscles on this model. Rectus femoris is the long, straight muscle going straight up and down the leg. Vastus lateralis is the one on the lateral side. And I can tell it's the lateral side because I can look at the toes, and it's the pinky toe is on the lateral side. And vastus medialis is on the medial side. Because I can turn this leg, I can actually show you 2 other muscles. This long strap-like muscle here is called gracilis. And you can kind of imagine if you're wearing a pair of blue jeans and it has the seam going right down the inside, this would be right underneath it. It goes straight down the leg. That's gracilis. This other muscle here is called the sartorius, and this is the longest muscle in your body. It actually goes from the tibia all the way up and inserts on the hip. So sartorius, and I always remember, is an S-shaped muscle, so it kind of curves in 2 directions. On the lower leg, you have the tibialis anterior, and on the back, you have gastrocnemius, which is this muscle down here, And then deep to gastrocnemius. Here's gastrocnemius. Deep to gastrocnemius is soleus. So those are two lower leg muscles. Thanks for watching. See you in class.